During a beautiful autumn day in countryside Vermont, a dead body appears out of nowhere. Over the course of a single day, the townspeople will discover his body. And here's where things get weird. The first person to find him is a young boy, out playing with his toy gun in the forest. He gets scared and runs home. This is probably the only character in the entire movie who reacts like a human being. The next to find the body is a retired sea captain, Captain Wiles, who assumes he accidentally shot the man while hunting. He decided to hide the body so nobody can find out. But he's greeted by Miss Gravely, a woman from town. Instead of gasping or panicking, she just nonchalantly says,
"What seems to be the trouble, Captain?"
As if it's perfectly normal to see a person trying to hide a dead body. She ends up inviting him over for an afternoon tea before walking away. As Captain Wiles goes back to hiding the body, the boy returns. This time with his mother, Jennifer. She takes one look and immediately recognizes the man as her ex-husband Harry.
No, it can't be. Harry.
Her reaction? Relief. She's almost pleased that he's dead.
Harry, thank Providence, the last of Harry.
She then leaves Harry's body behind like an old piece of furniture no one wants to deal with.
Let's run home and get that lemonade.
Later that day, 3 more townspeople come across Harry's corpse. Across all of these encounters, no one panics, no one screams. No one calls the police like they would in real life or in any other movie, as if the dead body is just a mild inconvenience, something to step over on your way to tea. This sets the tone for the entire film. Deadpan.
You know, Harry, the dead man.
Oh, him. That's my husband.
Yet courteous.
Why, Captain Wiles, what a surprise.
But you invited me, Miss Gravely. At least, that's how I remember it.
Of course I did, Captain, but somehow it's still a surprise.
And completely surreal. If you went into this movie blind, you would never guess it was made by the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. This is the same director behind Psycho, Vertigo, Rear Window, and so many other classics that grip you with tension and fear. But why does no one ever talk about The Trouble with Harry? Is it just overshadowed by Hitchcock's more iconic films? Or is it simply not a good movie?
All right, Ernest, let's go.
Before heading to France to film To Catch a Thief in 1954, Hitchcock gave screenwriter John Michael Hayes a copy of The Trouble with Harry, a novel by British author Jack Trevor Story, and asked him to adapt it for the screen. Hayes pushed to add more action and suspense, but Hitchcock insisted on keeping the novel's original dark comedy tone. In a conversation with the French filmmaker François Truffaut, he said, "I didn't change the novel very much. To my taste, the humor is quite rich." This goes to show just how much Hitchcock loved the source material, enough to strip away his usual suspense and thriller elements. Part of it was also personal. He had always wanted to make a dark comedy, and he felt Story's novel was perfect for it. So Hitchcock went and produced the film on a modest budget of $1 million, which is much lower compared to Catch a Thief, released earlier the same year with a $2.5 million budget. That makes sense, considering To Catch a Thief starred 2 of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time, Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. Meanwhile, The Trouble with Harry deliberately avoided casting big names. It was also Shirley MacLaine's screen debut. She was discovered by the producers while performing on Broadway. Despite its modest budget, The Trouble with Harry flopped at the box office, earning a disappointing $3.5 million and ultimately becoming a financial failure.
Well, Miss Gravely, all I know is nobody buys them.
For audiences in the 1950s, this was a total curveball. They would probably never expect something like this from Hitchcock. This is from someone who made Rear Window the year before,
Come on, get out of there.
and To Catch a Thief just months earlier. And these 2 were also written by the same writer, John Michael Hayes. Compared to those 2 hits, The Trouble with Harry just didn't seem to cut it. It confused the critics and disappointed moviegoers. In an interview, Hitchcock's daughter, Patricia Hitchcock, explained, "People went in to see that thinking they were going to see a Hitchcock movie, suspense, etc., etc., and it wasn't. It was a comedy. even though it was a dark comedy. Imagine going to a Broadway show and getting a poetry reading instead. That's what The Trouble with Harry felt like. A Hitchcock film, but instead of the suspense he's known for, it's a quiet black comedy.
Next spring, I'll set out some blueberry bushes.
Couldn't you make it something else? Lilac?
Another reason the film failed to impress the American audience is that many people just didn't find it funny, but instead, they found it offensive. That's because over the course of the film, Harry's body is buried, exhumed, and moved around over and over again, whether it's for the sake of another character's guilt, confusion, or simply convenience. At one point, they even try hiding the body in the bathtub,
She do it in our bathtub.
with pieces of his clothing casually left around the living room. John Forsythe, who plays Sam Marlowe in the film, once said, "Digging up a dead body and pulling it around, taking it to different places, is not considered funny, except by the British and some of the Europeans. But in the United States, death is not considered funny." Both Alfred Hitchcock and Jack Trevor Story, the author of the original novel, were British, so it's no surprise the film leans heavily into the British style of dark humor, but that tone didn't translate well to the American audience. Whether Hitchcock misunderstood the cultural gap or simply chose to overlook it, the result was the same, a box office flop, losing nearly $500,000 in the US market. Internationally, however, the film was received more warmly, especially in Britain and some countries in Europe, where dark humor is more accepted. In London and Rome, it played for a solid year, and in France, it ran for about a year and a half on the Champs-Élysées. It was a big hit overseas. But still, the international success wasn't enough to rescue the film's overall performance at the box office.
Nobody was interested, I tell you. Nobody ever cared until you came along.
Ah, that's what you think.
However, box office failure doesn't necessarily mean a film is bad. And when it comes to someone like Alfred Hitchcock, one of cinema's greatest minds, it's hard to imagine him ever truly making a bad film. Every now and then, a master filmmaker would create something that doesn't aim to please the audience, but feels more like a personal act of self-expression. A film can be made to explore an idea, a mood, or a strange corner of the filmmaker's imagination. A recent example is Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, which grossed just $14 million against a reported budget of $120 million. Or Damien Chazelle's Babylon, which earned $63 million on an $80 million budget. Both flopped commercially, yet I personally enjoyed them, and I actually went to see Babylon twice in the movie theater. In a time when cinemas are flooded with sequels and remakes, films like these feel genuine. They have a voice, they take risks, they're original, and they dare to be different. Whether or not they work for everyone, there's something refreshing about seeing a director go all in on their vision. The same could be said of The Trouble with Harry. It's absurd, it's radical, especially for the 1950s, and in many ways, it reveals a different side of Alfred Hitchcock, one that's closer to a surrealist artist than a master of suspense. Maybe now, decades later, it is finally time to give this strange little film the appreciation it deserves.